Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's conversation is about what it actually takes to run a corporate gifting program at scale, where you're shipping hundreds of products at a time to different recipients all over the country, all within a window that basically runs from October to January and leaves very little room for error. And to have that conversation today, we've got some folks from Goode Company with us. Goode Company is a Houston restaurant institution. Their Brazos Bottom pecan pie was named by Bloomberg as a best mail order pie winner, and it's become, probably fair to say, one of the most gifted food products in corporate America. What started with the founder taking phone calls from homesick Texans asking if he could send them some pies has now grown into a business that regularly ships orders with hundreds or thousands of recipients in a single order. And they're running this all on Shopify Plus using B2B functionality and using our app Send to Many. So I'd like to get into this with our two guests today. We've got Taylor Clark. Taylor runs the gifting and e-commerce side of the business. And Stephen Capps is the tech lead who has built out everything that it takes to keep the operation running on it from an e-commerce and technical point of view in Q4. And I'm Cam Balzer. I've spent most of my career in D2C and B2B e-commerce. And for the last couple of years, I've been building Send to Many to solve this exact problem. I experienced it firsthand working with a large florist and migrating them to Shopify. And the key problem is basically how do you handle multi-recipient orders online? So Send to Many now helps numerous gifting programs of every shape and size. And Goode Company is one of our biggest customers, and we're really happy to have Stephen and Taylor with us today. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. For long time listener, first time caller kind of deal. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Love it. Just before we dive into the questions, we're going to be doing some Q&A at the end. So feel free to use the chat wherever you're watching to add any questions that you've got as we go. And we'll pick up any questions that are kind of in the stream of things while we're going, but we'll hit on any others at the end as well. So Taylor, why don't we start with you, and if you could give us just a little bit more background on Goode Company and what your role is there.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. So I'm Taylor, and I oversee the e-commerce side along with our supply chain and production for the Goode Company restaurant group. And for anyone, if you haven't been to Houston, Goode Company is one of those brands that really represents the way Houston thinks about food and hospitality. We started as a small Houston barbecue restaurant in 1977. And so over time, Goode Company grew into a collection of restaurants and an online shop that really just tries to celebrate Texas cooking and lifestyle. And so we've got a barbecue, some seafoods, Tex-Mex, and of course, the subject of the conversation today is primarily the pecan pie. But to us, it's always been about more than just food. It's about family, community, making people feel taken care of. And how do we create an environment where people feel like whether they're sitting in one of our restaurants or opening a gift, that it's from us across the country, that it's the same experience.
Awesome. And Stephen, you head up technology for the restaurant group. How did you come into this role, and what does your side of the operation look like?
Yeah, I walked in one day and just sat down at a desk and they just started paying me. It was crazy. Yeah, they're like, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. No, it's funny how where life takes us. My academic background was in applied math and computer science. After school, I went into industry, actually into sales. I wanted to upskill my soft skills side of my professional career. And I did that run, and it was great. And I actually met the Goode Company folks as clients of mine at the time. And I finished my sales portion of my career and onto director of technology, section of the career. So it's been phenomenal. That's how I kind of found my way here. And one of the first projects that I had when I came on board was with Taylor on, what does e-commerce look like? What could we be doing better? And namely, it was, should we be moving over to Shopify? That was the big question at the time. And so, spoiler alert, we did, and it's been the best, at least from my perspective, like that we've made on the e-commerce side so far.
Nice. We'll come back to some of that technology evolution and the role Shopify's played in unlocking gifting for you guys. But let's start with a little bit more about the product. I've worked with now hundreds of gifting sites, and I've observed this pattern where some of the most effective gifting brands are really strongly regional, where you're not just sending a gift, but you're kind of sending a place. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you guys see the pies themselves, and like I know even like Brazos Bottom. I always say that wrong, but is that right? Brazos.
Yeah, Brazos.
Brazos. How that plays in, like, and how do you think that the Texas piece of what you guys do really connects with your customers? And maybe we can bring up the pie page on your site just to give people a sense of the product as well.
Yeah, you want to show them that? Sure, and I can talk about pies real quick, Stephen, and then Cam, you can rephrase anything else you want to ask. This is one of our signature products, and so why? And if you're not in Texas, you might be thinking, why pecan pie? What's the big deal here? Pecan pie it was not only one of our signature items, but it's a big deal in the South, and especially Texas, because it sits kind of at the intersection of local ingredients, holiday ritual, and really state identity. The pecan tree is actually the official state tree in Texas. And so it's not just a southern nut, right? It's just deeply native to the regions. And so it's become in pecans, they ripen in the fall, right when Thanksgiving and Christmas baking season starts, right? So you can imagine how it became an ingrained tradition in people's holidays. So the big deal is not just that pecan pie tastes good; it is Texas in dessert form, essentially. Local pecans, southern sweetness, holiday nostalgia, family recipes, and a little state pride sprinkled in there, and that's what makes for a killer a recipe in the region, as you noted, Cam.
Yeah, and so what do you know about what your customers, like how they're thinking about that Texas identity as part of their gifting programs?
You're saying, like, how do they relate to the Texas identity?
Yeah, like are most of your customers in Texas? I think maybe that's evolved over time based on
Yeah, we have a tremendous base of customers in Texas, and obviously that's how it started. And then it expanded from homesick Texans, as you mentioned, sending things out to their family or to themselves, and that's how it kind of expanded. But over time, we've tried to cultivate or kind of rebrand some of our image so that really it's more a reflection of our Southern hospitality and not necessarily just for Texans. It's for everyone. You just get a taste of what we call our Southern hospitality in our signature item.
Right. And so not only are you selling a regional recipe, and I think it was even like the founders in the founders family, that recipe, right? But you're also putting it in a strongly branded pie box.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the pie box was so when it first started, as we said, that people would call, from California and say, "Hey, is there any way I can get that pecan pie?" Well, you can't just send it in a cardboard to-go box, across state lines. It doesn't look as pretty when it gets there. And so the founder came up with the cool idea. We have wooden gift box, and it's become a signature item. I mean, this has been in Ford commercials, right? It's actually a trademarked wooden product for us now. It's kind of like the Tiffany's blue bag, but for Texas pies. Yep. It's become a piece of Texas hospitality that you can send anywhere. But it was initially designed just to make sure that it made it in one piece.
Yeah, and so you make it possible for gifters to customize that pie lid as well, or that pie box. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we try to remember is that we're managing people's relationships. And so part of that management is people wanting to send very tailored messages to their clients or employees or partners. And people will frequently want to brand the lid with their own logo or messaging. And so we've had to develop significant processes around that procedure. But to make sure that when somebody opens that gift, Cam, I think you sent some right recently, but they open it and they see, they don't necessarily have to think the Goode Company sent me this, but they think, hey, Cam, it sent him and he sent me one of these pies. And so it kind of completes the experience. Our signature product and packaging with your logo on top makes for a really beautiful thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it really brings in that regional identity. If people don't know how important the pies are to Texas, the box definitely definitely makes that clear.
Yeah.
So let's shift to the e-commerce side and talk a little bit about what it takes to sell these gifts online. And in a corporate environment, or in a gifting environment looked at broadly, it's not just selling it to, large like companies who are sending it to hundreds of recipients, but it could also be selling it to, a mom who's sending pies to her grown kids across the country, or that kind of a scenario too. Like what's the journey look like to kind of build an experience online where you're kind of meeting that breadth of needs from, small individual gifters all the way up to people maybe sending over 1,000 gifts at a time.
Yeah. I can take this one if you want, Taylor. Just to kind of address, like, at least from an e-commerce perspective, there's from a front end standpoint, there's different journeys, like you mentioned, that people are going to go through, right? So, for instance, making sure that the folks that want to be able to send it to 16 different people, but don't want to necessarily go send us a form and have a rep do it all. They just want to kind of, hey, I know my addresses. Let me just do it. Let me pay for it. Send it off. Call it a day. Giving them a route to do that. So whenever we get to it, we'll kind of walk through how that drawer cart experience would look like, but also having a journey for folks that just have one place that they're sending into, like, hey, I just want to buy a pie for myself,
right?
And then last but certainly not least, the folks that have very complex orders or have 700 addresses or whatever, that they want another set of eyes looking at this thing, right? They want that white glove service. And so that was arguably the most complicated part of building out the site, was giving everybody each of those options without having them like fight each other in a way.
Right.
And so at least from a development standpoint, from a website standpoint, that was the biggest issue.
Yeah. And so like with e-commerce, I think when brands think e-commerce, they think a channel that's basically the customer's doing everything themselves, right? Like they're picking the products, placing the order. They're not calling somebody. They're not, back to the olden days, like mailing in a catalog form or something, right? It's a channel where really the customer does everything, but that's not really the objective here, right? Like you guys are looking to find a balance between the no-touch customers who do it all themselves, but then these really high-touch customers as well.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like, if you call and you make a reservation somewhere at a restaurant, if you're just making kind of a standard reservation, you don't mind doing it online. But when you're celebrating something really special, you kind of want to call and talk to somebody to make sure they understand. Or if you've got an allergy or something, you want to talk to a person. And so that's kind of the difference between a really big B2B order and just maybe someone who just wants to send a smaller order. Both have the same underlying expectations, but one requires a little bit more assurance to make sure that everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of walk through like visually, like what each of those journeys look like.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And I think the elephant in the room here kind of is that this isn't necessarily easy on Shopify, right? Like if you have one person who wants to send one pie to one address, that's easy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's some complexity. Do you want to?
Yeah.
How do you think about that, Steve? Yeah.
I did. So when I first came on board, and I was like, oh yeah, Shopify is the industry leader for e-commerce. It's a no-brainer. They have some of the best development platforms for integrators and app developers. Full stop. There's no way that they don't have like a built-in B2B multi-recipient like checkout experience. There's just no way that doesn't exist. And Taylor remembers these conversations that I had with him. I was like, oh, they've got to have it. He's like, even I show me that it exists and I'll take a look. And sure enough, it didn't exist. When we came on board with Shopify, gosh, it's been 3 years now, Taylor? Yeah. Sure, it didn't exist. There was nothing out there for this, for these large bulk orders, right? Mm-hmm. So what we ended up having to do is, I had to like actually develop an internal application
Yep.
that took in CSVs and Excel docs from forms that people uploaded into an internal application where our teams would manage it and, look at the recipients and have the automation comb through it and verify addresses, make sure that the quantities are right. They didn't just they didn't upload a picture of their dog. They actually uploaded an actual spreadsheet. And if they did upload a picture of their dog, then that's very cute, but they'll probably get a call from our rep to make sure that we get the actual thing. So there was all of these workflow pieces that we had to address and figure out. And it took Taylor and I a lot of back and forth for me to get a good understanding of what is actually required to make this happen. So our first year of doing sales on Shopify was with our own built internal application where folks would submit a form with an Excel sheet. It would get ingested. They would get an invoice all through this internal app, which worked. It works pretty well. I'd say like a solid 6 out of 10, Taylor? What do you think?
Yeah, we had 2 custom developments before Steven, and Steven did the best job by far. But I say that just to highlight the complexity of building something like this out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys were on another platform before you moved to Shopify, so you had some stuff built there. So you'd been through this a few times. And so you guys were actually the perfect early customer for us. You found us about a year ago. And
match made in heaven, baby. It was destiny. It was destiny. It was going to happen. That's exactly what happened. Like here's the rub with building an app yourself is if things break and there's billions and trillions of dollars on the line for this, to make sure that things are actually going to work, I might be at Renaissance Festival where there's no internet and there might be a massive issue that occurs and, I got to stumble outside the mead hall and take a call and all that kind of stuff. Cause it's a team of one over here, y'all. It's in the lift to manage applications, especially really technical ones where people's money is flying back and forth is incredibly taxing and tolling mentally and from a resource perspective. So when we were looking, it was the beginning of it was right after that first season. I was like, okay, I'm just going to look and see if there's anything out there that's new and see if maybe someone's figured this out. And that's where I stumbled across Sensimany and I met Cam and we worked hand in hand to help their already great foundation of a platform get to what we would need in order for us to use it during our busy season. And we're happy to say that it was everything and more. It's so much more sophisticated than whatever, little hunk of metal Toyota Camry that I got. Now we're sitting in a Cadillac. We're driving good. And it was just a total game changer. It's by far the most valuable like B2B app that Shopify has on their marketplace today. And I say that full chest. It's crazy that it's not just being like slapped on every single B2B advertisement that Shopify has. So Shopify, if you're listening, these guys know what they're doing. And this is the future of B2B because this is where businesses want to go send many gifts to all of their customers, right? And it's if you make it easy for people and you give them an option of, hey, I want to be able to upload this. Hey, I want to be able to do this on the front end myself. They'll go do it. It's incredible how like the adoption of this.
Awesome. Not a paid placement. Thank you. Thank you for that, Stephen. You were going to bring up the site and show people how you've integrated us into I'm a large gifter. I need to send 500 gifts. I'm a mom. I need to send 5 gifts.
Yeah. And so there's actually 3 paths really. So there's the, hey, I just want a pie for me. Like I just want my own pie because I like pie, right? That's path 1. So like if someone is actually just checking out and they just want to buy themselves a pie, it's just for themselves. They can just go to checkout directly through here. And for those unfamiliar, like this is just the regular Shopify checkout, right? This is nothing fancy. This is not Sensimany or anything. The key piece that we had to implement was, okay, like how do we address folks who do have multiple addresses that they want to order, and how would we tell them that that's where they need to go? So we have a ship to multiple addresses link inside of the drawer that is technically just the cart. If you actually look at the URL, this is just shop.goodecompany.com/cart. And this is the cart user interface of Send to Many, where you select your products, you put in your recipients and your names, they get all typed in. You can set up a ship by date where people can schedule their delivery. And then this would be the checkout with the Send to Many journey included, right? And then so that's path 2. This is for people like myself. I'm a millennial. I don't want to have to call people to do stuff. I hate email. Yeah. Email sucks. So I would much rather let me just type it in. Let me just go check out by myself and let me just go handle it. But we have so many customers that they don't want to do it themselves. They want another set of eyes. They want to make sure they're doing it right. They're used to being able to send this list off, sometimes handwritten, by the way. It's kind of crazy that this still happens, but they'll send handwritten notes of 123 Main Street or where they want the pie sent. But those people, they need their own journey as well. And so we have the make an inquiry button here, but this is our bulk orders page that most large clients would come visit. And it's really just a form that goes to the Send to Many backend that our team looks at, sees, oh, we got an inquiry. Someone wants a pie or two, right? And so they'll come in here and they'll upload their spreadsheet, and we'll review it and take that journey on from there, from a white glove perspective.
Awesome.
That's really it. Those are the main 3. And for the longest time, it was really just 2. It was forms only, having people just send a bunch of pies to themselves, and I guess
or placing orders one at a time, over and over.
Yeah, exactly. And so had other apps that we looked at and did use for a brief period of time that had the built-in ship to multiple addresses, do it yourself, like the DIY checkout experience, but they just were not very good. And this was, at least for me, what the end game was in my mind of, hey, let's get people off of the form and onto this. And this got a ton of adoption, but I will say we still have a ton of customers that still do the form upload because it's just the environment that they would like to interact with us in.
Right. Like a large law firm that wants to send to 100 or hundreds of customers isn't going to come into this page and enter hundreds of these one at a time, right?
They might, but probably not.
I think the most we saw with this was in the 80s, somebody entered 80 addresses on this checkout page. But so
it's there's going to be limits to that, and that if we had nixed the upload path, who knows what kind of customers we'd be isolating because of that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the peak season itself. How do you guys think about your what does peak season look like in terms of timing for you? Because I know a lot of gifters are just focused on that kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday experience, but your season, it looks a little different.
Yeah, our peak season starts next month, planning. So we have to meet with everybody from our suppliers to, we start planning with FedEx. We have to plan months in advance to make sure that we have success when the rush comes around. And that means planning inventory, packaging, staffing, production schedules. But more importantly, it also means getting clients to start thinking about their lists and their customizations really early on. We are fortunate. We have an extremely high retention rate. And so the longer customers have worked with us, the more comfortable they are starting to engage with us before the traditional holiday season. And so particularly the more customized it gets, the more amenable they are to starting to work with us in the earlier August, September months.
Yeah, and then in terms of the kind of the order volume, you guys have kind of an early peak and then a later peak, right? Because the pies work great for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we have 2 peaks really, in November and then in December. And then we have a small one in January where it's oh crap, I forgot my gift.
A Happy New Year, I guess. Yeah. That's my usual angle. So you mentioned staffing, and I think most people, when they're thinking about this, it's really just on the how do you handle the customer questions and issues with delivery and stuff, but a lot of your work is happening up front. How does your staffing look for like your customer service or the team that's helping with these kinds of orders look like maybe versus a company that would be just have that kind of Christmas gifting mode in place?
Are you asking how our staffing is different since we have a larger holiday business versus someone that just does December?
Right. And also the fact that you're dealing with so many big orders.
Yeah. I think that maybe, Kim, what that points to is, so it's because it's largely seasonal. We generally have, we have a full-time staff, but we've always brought in additional help for the holiday season.
Yeah.
And the challenge there is that it's not really scalable. So we are
Right.
still bringing people, but the goal and the reason why we have such a high retention rate is that we have a very low or very high bar for success, right? We expect 100% accuracy in addresses and delivery. And so, when you start to incorporate fresh variables like new people, new faces, if your training isn't 100% perfect every single day, and if they're not feeling great, you've got a shot to miss something. And so it's really important to have spectacular partners and programs that you work with, people like yourself, that will enable you to scale. You don't always have 50 extra desks that you can seat customer service people at. And so how do you take some of the lift off of your business and off of your potential holiday help by implementing programs like Send-to-Many? And Send-to-Many has been a tremendous benefit to our business because we try to work with partners who can scale just like we can. And you've made that especially easy, Cam, being able to. It doesn't matter if it's a couple dozen or a couple thousand. You're able to do it and to maintain that high degree of accuracy as well.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that you had a metric about the number of orders your staff were able to handle per person. Is that right?
Yes, and we've noticed that has increased as the dollar amount of how much a seasonal person can process in a season has increased as the systems get easier to work with. And so Send-to-Many has had the highest dollar amount per employee than we've experienced with other programs.
Awesome.
Yeah. So when something gets easier, obviously people can do more of it and faster and don't get bogged down.
Yeah. And then I think getting back to that point I made up front, like even the gifting pages, sometimes when you find a gifting page on a e-commerce site, you get the feeling that the merchant will take your order, but doesn't necessarily want to, isn't necessarily opening their arms wide open for that order. But if you're starting to see that scale on the back end where you can actually, you don't need to just keep adding employees, you've got tools that help you streamline that operation. I think your site is a good example of what it looks like when you are ready to open your arms wide to these orders, right? Like you have a banner that just spins across every page on your site, like large gift order, come here. Like we want you to send your large gift orders through us. We can cope.
Yeah, we've certainly had years to craft that messaging, but we specialize in those large orders now.
Yeah, so if you were going to give advice to another brand that's really looking to get going here, actually maybe not advice, let's put it this way, like if for other brands that are looking to get to kind of the scale that you guys are working at, what are one or two things that are going to bite them first?
Steven, do you want to speak from a technical perspective, and I can do it from an operational one?
Yeah, definitely your site is probably going to need some work on the pathing is the first thing that you're going to come across, because the last thing that you want it to be so easy that you don't get calls about confused customers saying, hey, I went to checkout and I wasn't given any options to fill in my addresses, so I just put it this way and you guys go figure it out. These are the addresses I want you to go send it to. Luckily, we don't really get those because we've got this structured in such a clean way. But that would be the first thing, is to make sure that your workflow and the flow of the interaction is clean, so that people know where they are and know where they want to go, is the first biggest thing. The second piece that I think is probably a good idea is just to make sure that this is more operational. So maybe I'll toss it over to Taylor on it. I was going to say, if you do have the inquiry form, you actually have someone, taking a look at it to make sure that whenever someone does say, hey, I'd like to buy 100 widgets, it doesn't just sit there and collect dust, right? Because then they're not gonna buy the widgets. I know it's a silly thing to say, but it's a problem I have heard from other brands is it's just not, since it's a new thing for you, it's not a natural priority for it to be monitored, because it is a different workflow internally as it is externally too.
I think that if I was going to just give one fortune cookie style piece of advice, it would be just, what's the next bottleneck? And so that's how we got to Send-to-Many in the first place. It's how we've gotten to every single development that we've ever had to make. And you listen to your customers and you figure out, or you look at your operations, you're like, what's the problem? And don't try to find a human solution, right? Try to find some way that's going to automate it, because human solutions will not allow you to scale your business to the extent that you want to. And so focus on the next one, solve that, find a good partner, move on to the next one. And when you continue to do that over and over and over again, eventually you build out this business and system of a bunch of processes that hopefully work really well. And if you're always asking that question, you're always going to allow yourself to grow and manage the inevitable, hopefully, spike in demand that you get from having those great processes.
Yeah, I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other one that was I just thought of is definitely the ship by date functionality, either from a B2C or B2B piece. Shopify doesn't make it that easy. Like, you can do it with integrations and stuff, with API calls and stuff, but there's not a very good out of the box way for a non-technical person on a Shopify admin screen to set a ship by date and have it flow through to your fulfillment software. It's a surprising gap in the API documentation that is just a little odd, but that would be one thing that I would definitely look at, because Send-to-Many will collect that data, but you got to tell Send-to-Many where it's going to go. Right?
Do you want to actually give the nugget on how you guys solve that? So in Send-to-Many, we have a shipping scheduler, and you can add it so that per recipient or overall across all your recipients, you can set a date. And by default, we call that the ship date, but you could rename it and make it anything. It's really just collecting a date with some rules around it. So we collect it on the front. What do you guys do with it from there?
Yeah, we have a flow. So if anyone who plays around in Shopify, there's Shopify flows that will listen for an order's been created, and it will populate. You can have it do whatever you want it to do. So we have it fulfill by date. That's the key field that you're looking for. Is every order has fulfillments, and inside of those fulfillments, there is a fulfill by date field that needs to be populated for it to show up on the main screen, and also flow into other third-party fulfillment tools as well. That's the main field that pretty much every software I've looked at will reference. So if you don't put it there, it will just be a field that's a meta field or a note that appears on your order. Right. Yeah. So we use Flow, and have it, again, it listens and it takes whatever Send-to-Many sends through the node attributes or the meta fields and places it into the fulfill by date.
Yeah. And then you guys have some rules around that to double check it and all that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah, because we're not going to be shipping some stuff out on certain days of the week, or depending on what products are in there. There's a lot of custom stuff. And candidly, the Shopify, what do they call their little robot guy? Their little
sidekick.
Sidekick. He's actually pretty good with doing some of the scary looking code stuff inside of Flow itself. So you can literally tell it that, hey, we have ship by dates that get populated into this spot. But you have to know to tell it, hey, I want you to put it into the fulfill by date field in fulfillments. And then it'll go ahead and populate it. And that's the key to talking to these little robots, is to know what you're kind of talking about as you're guiding it through what you're asking it to do.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. One thing I'm curious about is in terms of, Taylor, you mentioned the importance of training that team that's working with customers on these big orders. Do you have a playbook for what to do when things go wrong? So, you ship enough pies that even at the quality level that you're working at, somebody's not going to get a pie for some reason that might not even be your fault. How do you train your staff for those kinds of scenarios? And those things can become major cost lines, right, for a high volume gifting business.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, Cam, and that's one of the things that we've spent time trying to get ahead of. And so, for instance, we've got developments or ways to look into and see if something to come behind us and check us, right? So if something is stuck in shipping, or if it didn't make it out, like let's say the label fell in the trash. I don't know. We've got ways to find that, ideally before the customer has found it. And so it was an area where one year we just said, hey, how do we get ahead of this? So for those, few customers where there's an issue, like how do they not have to worry about it? And we pick it up before they do. And so literally our philosophy is, what's the next bottleneck to fix? And that was 1 year. And so, yeah, we try to find things so that no one ever has to call us and say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. Catch it before the customer, right? That's And with gifting orders, the challenge is that one gifter might be sending hundreds of orders. So how do you kind of stay in front of it for all of those recipients?
Yeah, we've had to build out a custom dashboard that will check our orders and let's say this is not showing movement, but let's just say that broke. We have a contingency through our fulfillment software that will also allow us to check and to see what's not moving. And so it's not a problem we ever want to have. And so we try to stay ahead of it aggressively.
Yeah.
Kind of goes from a technology standpoint too. There's going to be, for whatever reason, I don't know what kind of demons are in the walls in some of these software companies, but like, Cloudflare, national outage, Azure, national outage.
Yeah, the Cloudflare isn't random either, right? Like that was right before the holidays.
I know, and so those kind of things, those kind of things are well, hopefully don't keep happening. But I'm just mentally prepared for it. Kind of like in Texas, we know we're due for hurricane every 3 years. You just kind of
say that.
Hey, it's gonna happen. We're overdue for one. You just have to mentally prepare yourself. Like, okay, there's gonna be something like that, and some of it we can skirt around. But like if there was a national, or like if some application that Shopify uses goes down and there's nothing we can do, we're not gonna start like shipping out catalogs or whatever to people. You just kind of have to take those as you go, but whatever, like Taylor said, having like some redundancy in here where if our internal dashboard breaks, we have this other dashboard that we can use that may not be as clean or easy to use, but at least have a sort of backup plan for when things go wrong.
Yeah, nice. And the same is true on our side. You guys were great about flagging any inconsistencies you saw with like the orders that we're generating, all the recipient orders that we generate for each of the bulk orders. And so early in the season, we built a system that basically goes through and audits the orders regularly to find any possible issues with orders that started on the storefront but didn't get generated into Shopify, even down to finding glitches where, a Shopify webhook, just like 1 in a million, it just did not fire, but we're
that it fired and it
the famous network error, the gremlin. But so we've got that same mentality on our side because we know how important this season is to you guys and want to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible all the way through.
And I'll say that's something unique about Cam and team over there is that I've worked with, I can't even count how many developers over my years, and it's a rarity to find folks who get it, who like understands how important it is that these things happen. Because you could look at the metrics from an analytical point of view and be like, we have a 99.9 success rate. It's like, okay, well, sucks for that guy who didn't get his pie and was told by his boss he was going to get one, and now he didn't. Now he feels like he's not getting invited to the Christmas party or whatever. And so it's a rarity to find developers who understand that. And hey, Cam, match made in heaven. It was destiny.
Yeah. Well, my partner Mark, who is our technical genius, and I both worked with the florist I mentioned early on. And so we've literally been, at our laptops on a floral production floor that's in a room that's like 50 degrees to keep the flowers from wilting during Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. And you don't have to be in that environment too many times. You don't have to have an issue pop up in that environment too many times before you realize like how important it is just to keep everything running smoothly. A small issue can quickly mushroom. And so we've experienced that personally and are just here for merchants to make sure that those issues don't ripple on you. So cool. Well, yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for your time, guys. I hope that people will check out your pies. And I know you guys are both on LinkedIn, so if folks have questions or any follow-up that they want to do, they can find you guys there. And yeah, we're excited to help you guys blow it out of the water again this holiday season. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll wrap it all up there, and we'll send a link around for folks that want to catch the highlights from our conversation again. And happy sending all around.
Happy sending. Love it.